As we are talking about creating vibrant and healthy and sustainable and equitable cities for all, maybe we should stop for a minute and think. Half of the homes that will be around in 40 years do not exist today. Half of them. Today we have about 3.5 billion people living in cities. Within the lifetime of our students, of our children, we're gonna double to 7 billion. That has never happened before and will probably never happen again. In the world's 20 largest cities by 2100, many are cities in Africa. Actually, in Africa, the population from around 1.1 billion is gonna double. It's gonna double by 2050 in just 30 years. It's nothing. In 30 years, it's gonna double. Of the world's 10 largest, fastest growing cities, all of them are in Africa. So we need to think, how do we want to live? How do the people in each one of the cities in Africa want to live? Because however you decide how do you want to live, that's how you are gonna build the cities. And it could be very nice and civilized where people walk and ride bicycles and it's sustainable. Of course, we need to densify. There are many ways to densify. People don't like density because they think only 40-story buildings. No, you get the same density with 40-story buildings every other block than you get with 5 or 6 or 7-story buildings right next to each other. So there are many ways to densify, but we cannot continue sprawling, because if continues sprawling, it's gonna be horrible for climate change, for sustainability, for livability. So we need to change. We have a magnificent opportunity, but also a huge responsibility, because whatever we do or don't do in the next 40 years is where people are gonna live for hundreds of years. So we need to do it right. So if this is what's gonna happen in the next 40 years, let's see what we've done in the last 40, because if what we've been doing is good, then let's just do more of the same. In the last 40 years, we've been focusing on car, and not on people's happiness. And these are the kind of cities that we've been building. This is how we've been trying to solve mobility. And even with billions and billions invested in this, we haven't even solved mobility. This is how we've been doing the neighborhoods. And instead of parks, we've been doing parking lots. So it's very clear. Imagine the little children, the elderly, people with disabilities, they become kind of like a slave to someone with a car just to go out for an ice cream. This is how we've been doing cities, segregating, sending the poorest people to the worst places where there are no jobs, where the education is poor, where there are no facilities. This is how we've been doing. This is the wealthiest country in the world, the US. And we see by postal code, the postal code in dark red, the life expectancy is 60. In light pink is 90. How can we even accept that in cities, if you happen to be born and live in a neighborhood, your life expectancy is gonna be 90. But if you are born 10 minutes away, your life expectancy is gonna be 60. It's unthinkable. So the last 40 years from the point of view of building cities have not been good. Most of it has been horrible, a little bit mediocre, and very few, like with acupuncture, are okay, are good. So we need to improve the cities that we have today. But we also need to create many great cities for many, many millions of people. But we must create cities radically different, radically different. And this is the opportunity that you have in Africa. It doesn't matter the city is 2,000 people or it has 500,000, 5 million, 10 million, 20 million. The issues are very similar. We are having public health crisis, physical, mental, emotional. We have population growing and we're living longer. Actually, not just in Africa, everywhere. Look, only 200 years ago, I mean, we've been around for 200,000 years, but 200 years ago, all of these dots are the countries in the world. 200 years ago, no country had a life expectancy above 45. Now, no country has a life expectancy below 45. We're living much longer. Climate change, we are facing it everywhere. We see the symptoms everywhere. Even if some people don't want to believe, And this has a huge impact in how do we do cities. Because like this is the map of Chicago. In the downtown that is in blue, it has a lot less impact than in the suburbs. So having dense cities is really, really good for climate change. And we need to have healthy neighborhoods, because when we look at cities like this one, for example, it's not the same if you live in these neighborhoods that if you live in these neighborhoods. So we cannot average. We need to create city-wide good. Same thing with the impact on climate change and the neighborhoods. Same thing, there's a few zip codes become a neighborhood. And now COVID-19 that is hitting the world very, very hard. And we've seen how the quality of the air has changed. Even in a few weeks of having fewer cars, our children, our elderly, everybody is breathing cleaner air. So it's very clear that we need to think about health and equity and sustainability. The COVID-19 has shown us that sometimes the impossible becomes possible. People said, oh, we cannot do this. Bikeways. There were many cities saying, oh, we don't have space for the bicycles. We cannot build bikeways because they are very expensive. And now some of the best cities in the world, the ones with the best quality of life, are doing it. It's London, it's Vienna, it's Paris. Paris is doing over 200 new kilometers of protected bikeways. And any city in Africa can do this. So when we're thinking the bicycle is the symbol of the future, if the bicycle is a symbol of having sustainable and healthy and equitable cities. And all of a sudden people were able to do it in just a few weeks. They are creating networks, north, south, east, west, creating connectivity. And it's great how we've been seeing, for example, these Muslim people praying in the parking lot of an IKEA. So this gigantic public space became something else. Now in Indonesia, we're having public markets on the streets. When we look at cities from the air, the streets are about 30% of our city. So and streets are public space. They can have different uses according to the time of the day of the week of the year. So we need to really imagine that in post-COVID-19, we need to have cities that are equitable, that are sustainable, because we also have a much bigger challenge than COVID-19, that is climate change. And if we're not able to get together around the world to solve something as smaller as COVID-19, we won't be able to tackle climate change. So I'm really happy to be part of the movement of ICLEI and Rise Africa on this opportunity and responsibility. And we need to involve citizens, because citizens are alive. Citizens want to participate virtually, in person, in many ways, to create healthier and happier cities. And what I mean, healthier and happier and equity, what do I mean by health? Health is is a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being. It's not just absence of disease. So we need to rethink these definitions. Happiness has to be sustainable. What is sustainable happiness? It's happiness that contributes to the individual, the community, or the global well-being, as long as it does not exploit other people, the environment, and future generations. We also need to think of equity. It's about giving everyone what they need to be successful. It's not the same thing as equality. Equality is giving everybody the same. No, some people are starting so far behind that we need to give them priority. Equity is about fairness. The other day, someone did this cartoon that said, this is equality, giving everybody one box. This is equity according to their needs. And then someone said, if that is equality and that's equity, this is reality. Maybe we're even much worse. Equity and equality. I mean, we must ensure equity before we can even talk about equality. So the post-COVID-19, we need to be able to take a crisis. We're right in the middle of the crisis, and there's gonna be a transition for 12, 18 months, and then it's gonna be the post-COVID. And the post-COVID, so we need to change. And why don't we change? Because change is hard. Doing more of the same is easy, but we need to change very clearly. And in Africa, when the city is growing so much, what a magnificent opportunity to change. But you gotta keep in mind, change is not easy. Change is not unanimous. Second, the general interest must prevail over the particular. And third guiding rule in change is that the cost of doing nothing is not nothing. We need to change or the cost is going to be gigantic. So I began saying we have an opportunity and we have a responsibility. It seems easy. Instead of cars, let's do walk, bike, take public transit. But yeah, and some people are going to, we're going to plant trees and do bikeways and footpaths. But others are thinking, no, we're going to have cars. I've seen cities in Africa where all of a sudden, only 15 out of 100 people use their car as a mode of mobility. But nevertheless, I see these roads with 4, 6, 8 lanes, no footpaths, no bikeways, no benches, no trees. So this might get even worse before it gets better. How do we want to live? We really got to keep in mind when we evaluate cities in Africa or anywhere, we need to evaluate, but how do we treat the most vulnerable citizens? And the most vulnerable citizens are by age, the children and the elder, but also people that are poor, people that have disabilities, people that have racial minorities or ethnic minorities, or women in many places. So these are vulnerable people. We need to focus. It's not about creating in our cities small areas like a Disney World for the wealthy and healthy 20 to 60. It's about everyone, our vulnerable people. And of course, when we talk about enlarged people in Africa, we got a little bit of everyone. So we need to give priority to the vulnerable ones. We need to create equitable and sustainable cities. I'm the founder and chair of 880 Cities and ambassador of World Urban Parks, and I have been lucky to work in over 350 different cities all over the world. Some of them in Africa, some big cities, some small ones, some rich ones, some poor ones. And I'm the founder and chair of 880 Cities. What is 880 Cities? 880 Cities is not about walking or cycling or transit. It's not about parks or streets. Those are the means, not the end. The end is about how are we going to create successful cities and neighborhoods. We are going to have healthier communities and people are going to be happier. And it's not that hard when we are talking about this. How are we going to do? I mean, think for a minute. What if everything that we did in our community, in our city, everything, the footpath, the crosswalk, the street, the park, the school, the library, the restaurant, the buildings, everything had to be great for an 8 and an 80-year-old. Not 8 to 80, 8 and 80 as an indicator. Why? Because if we create something great for the 8 and the 80, it's going to be great for everybody, from 0 to over 100. We need to stop building our cities as if everybody was 30-year-old and athletic, and create cities for all. So that is the concept of 880 Cities, and that's why I think that with ICLEI and Rise Africa, we got to move on a post-COVID, sustainable, healthier, equitable cities for everyone.